Hey y'all, so I was in the process of watching back a video that I recorded yesterday. It's like the first video that's on this channel, and I don't really intend to do any like major editing on this channel. I'm not in the editing space in life right now, not for this specific channel. I edit other content, but this one is like the raw, unfiltered thoughts. And as I'm watching this video back, oh, sorry. Also, I just found this chapstick. I've been looking everywhere for this chapstick. I forgot I brought it into my office. I did a group project recently and I needed to make sure my lips were moisturized during the presentation. Anyway, as I'm watching this video back, I started talking about the reason I started therapy in 2021. And one of the main reasons I started, if I'm being honest, was because I knew that I was not mentally prepared for a long-term relationship, and I really wanted to be in a long-term relationship. And so that was like my main goal, was incredibly like male centered at the time. And funny thing is, since it's like what, 5 years into my therapy journey, I'm like on the complete opposite end of that now and don't even really think about relationships or anything at all. But I wanted to talk about this because I think that this is a word for someone, like whoever needs to hear it and is maybe grappling with this idea of wanting to be in a relationship but also not feeling like they are ready for a relationship. And like, okay, let me take a step back because this is not going to be for everyone. If you want to just be in casual whatever relationship situationships, if you're okay with that dynamic, then like this probably isn't the video for you. But if you are seriously wanting to better yourself and from the best, most healed version of yourself, align with someone who is right for you, this is probably for you, right? And not even from like a male centered perspective, but truly from a perspective of like, I want to be with someone, but I want to be with the right person. I personally think that that is the best way to approach dating and relationships, especially in, you know, the day and age that we're in right now. And to be selective about who you're allowing into your space. Being selective for yourself, but also valuing yourself enough to not accept breadcrumbs. And I'm not talking about like, the whole provider versus trad wife. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about you being centered in yourself enough to know what is best for you. To know that the person that you might have been attracted to last year might not be the person that you end up with because you've done enough work on yourself to actually unpack why that person was attractive. Was that person that you were attracted to last year actually good for you? Maybe they were. Great. And maybe who you end up with is very similar to that person. But if you're in a state of transition, this is really for the people who know that they're in a state of transition. This is how I've been in a big like transitional period. And I was thinking like, oh, well, it's beginning in 2026 because I had this big life change at the beginning of the year. But as I'm watching this video and I'm actually ice cream truck. I'm actually recounting all of my experiences over the last, like since the COVID era, I'm thinking about who I was and like how I was showing up in life, and all of the people that I was attracting matched where I was, right? And I think back to some of the people that I dated and like I would never give those folks the time of day. At the time, I was mentally aligned with them, but at this time, I would not find resonance with some of the people that I was dating. And I know, life is a journey, right? Where hopefully, if you're living a fulfilling life, you're constantly growing and evolving, and not in a way that's rooted in like capitalism. Because I also think I liken it to like jobs, right? When, at least in the type of job that I was in, and I know this happens in like the corporate setting too, based on like what I've heard from friends who are in those environments. If you're happy in your job and you do a good job and you're up for a promotion and you don't want a promotion because you are happy where you are, that's frowned upon. It is not always seen as a positive. You know, you can get a scarlet letter of like losing ambition or not being a go-getter or all of these negative attributes because you are content with where you are. Like, this isn't, I'm not trying to like shift this conversation to discourage people from being content, but I think that if you know that you are in a space of transition, then it's advantageous to be open to allowing your partners to grow with you. And I don't necessarily mean like the same partner, because who you start out with in your dating journey may not be who you end up with, right? If you're seeking a long-term monogamous relationship. And my hope for myself and for other people who have been on a healing journey is that you give yourself space and flexibility, and you also give the people that you're in intimate relationships with a lot of grace, and understand that if you decide to dedicate time and energy to yourself, to heal childhood wounds, to unpack baggage, to have difficult conversations that you couldn't have, you know, years ago for whatever reasons, or maybe not even necessarily years ago, but if you're starting to develop the skill of regulating your emotions and healing yourself and setting boundaries, like, not everybody chooses to do this work, and it's hard work, and it takes a lot of energy as an individual. And if you're with somebody who is like content with where they are, that's great, right? But if where they are and where you are and where you know that you want to go with your life, or with your life, with your lifestyle, with your mindset, really, it's a mindset thing. If you're with somebody who is content with their mindset, and their mindset is not aligned with your mindset, I'm not talking about like material things, right? I'm not talking about not dating a person because they're entry level and they don't make no money and you want to be with somebody rich. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody who may be emotionally unavailable. Like, think of whatever the you know, perceived negative, and I say negative loosely because it's all based on a person's individual identity and perspective and stage in life, because people mature at different rates, right? But if where they are in their mindset is not where you know you ultimately want to be, that might not be your long-term person. If that person is not of a growth mindset, it's not of a mindset of like, okay, I'm here right now, but I know that I want to do some work on myself because I respond to things in a way that is unhealthy at times. And I know it's rooted in something from my past. I just need to do some investigating. If you're with that kind of a person, that sounds like, you know, a pretty self-aware individual, right? And I'm saying that as a person who has done this work, and I look back on some past partners and I'm like, oh, that person was steeped in trauma, right? And I'm not a licensed mental health professional, and so I don't have nobody's clinical notes, understand that. But I've done enough work on myself with a licensed mental health professional who specializes in somatic healing, that when I think back to bonds I had with people that were not the healthiest, that were not the most productive, that did not make me feel good at the end of the day, right? That caused me some stress and some strain on my mental. I think back to those individuals and I can see that they were going through stuff too. Was it the same thing I was going through? No, because we're two totally different people, right? Two totally different people, two totally different lives. But I wasn't the best at, I was not skilled at that time in setting boundaries. And so I was very loose with my boundaries and I allowed myself to be disrespected a lot of times, right? And so I have to assume responsibility for that, but I also understand that my willingness to be a part in that treatment was rooted in the beliefs that I held about myself, right? Like I grew up with certain beliefs that were instilled in me from my environment, right? Like I can understand that now as a grown adult who has done this work and who has really had to dig deep and like go back some decades to be able to identify some very specific things in life and understand how, you know, those childhood wounds have shown up in my adult life and specifically in my romantic relationships. And so when I started in the video, I'm talking about like how when I started therapy in 2021, I was really focused on like my goal was I want to find a partner, help me, you know, do that, but from a healthy perspective. Like I haven't seen the type of relationship that I want to be in, so I need help modeling that. I knew that for sure. And what I wasn't expecting was that the journey was not just going to be like a guidebook for finding a life partner. It was truly inner work. It was truly being able to understand my past trauma and having a deeper understand of mother wounds and father wounds and, you know, the fact that I was a parentified child and like how that came to be and how that shows up in my adult life, you know, and thinking back to like family dynamics and as an adult being able to look back at family dynamics and seeing how dynamics between not just me and other family members, but like my parents or my grandparents or this parent and their sibling or, you know, cousins and just my relationship with my siblings, how all of these different dynamics played out and everyone was moving from a space of trauma. I don't think I have a single person in my life who is this like completely healed individual that's on some, you know, Buddhist monk type vibe. I don't know that that's anybody's story unless you are truly like living that kind of a life of just, you know, peaceful silent meditation constantly and you've identified as that. I think that everybody has some sort of trauma, especially like this is just my personal belief. If you are, it don't matter what age, honestly, if you survived 2020, that's collective trauma right there. And I think that as a society, we have just sort of jumped over the whole pandemic like it didn't happen and we're trying to pretend like we're back into normal life. And it has impacted so many people's lives, you know? And I'm not trying to like shift gears too much, but I'm just using that as an example of first, how I wish more people would seek mental health services, right? With licensed mental health practitioners, clinicians, and take their own healing seriously and truly learn how to regulate themselves. And I think if people did that work before they got into serious relationships, then they would find partnerships that were a lot more aligned. You know, like I think that's been one of my biggest fears now that I've done all of this work and I have become so self-aware and I'm in this constant state of not necessarily wanting to grow or heal myself or fix myself, but it's just a keen self-awareness. I know that there are people in my life who I've had to cut off because I can reflect back now and I say to myself, wow, this person has been in my life since high school. And since high school, I've always felt uncomfortable around them, but I kept them around as an associate, as a loose friend, if I can call them that, out of familiarity, out of habit. I don't do that anymore, right? If I don't feel comfortable in your presence and I don't have to be in your presence, there is a line drawn in the sand, and like that's a firm boundary, because I know that I do not have to, as an adult, I don't have to be in the presence of people who I don't feel comfortable around. Even if I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, because sometimes you know why you don't like someone, or like you just get a feeling about someone, and it's maybe the feeling is based on past events, right? And so your nervous system is responding to that. But if there's no physical evidence, that's when I start to do a little bit of a deeper dive, because I'm like, okay, this person hasn't necessarily done anything to me, but maybe it was something about the way they spoke to me, right? Maybe it was something about a look they gave me. And so my nervous system picked up on that, and my human brain can't decipher what it is, but I have to trust my body enough now to know when being in someone's presence causes me to feel unsafe. And so I say this to whoever needs to hear it. Allow yourself the time to develop as an individual. It truly does not matter how old you are. Like this healing journey, all it needs is for you to decide to do it. That's all it needs, right? Like it doesn't matter how old you are. If you are an adult, I'm gonna take that back. What I have learned is that we don't really come online until the age of 25, or like honestly probably early 30s, based on new research. And your prefrontal cortex is what I'm talking about, like this part of your brain. And that's the reasoning part of the brain, right? So if you can't fully rationalize things or use the reasoning brain until you are at least the age of 25, then it does not make sense to me personally. I'm not knocking what nobody does. You all are individuals. You all have free will to do what you want. But for me, making major life decisions before the age of 25 seems absurd. Like relationship type things. I mean, I think it's stupid that people have to pick majors and stuff if you choose to go to college at age 18. Like no teenager truly knows what they want to be for the rest of their life. They haven't lived long enough and had enough experience to know, right? This is why so many people go in and like, I'm going to be a doctor or whatever career that makes a whole lot of money, and then they get in it and then they realize that they actually hate math and science, which are two major things that you need to be good at to study medicine, right? Or they switch majors, or they flunk out, or do these things because they've had to make all of these big life decisions. And I mean, kudos to the people who know what they want to do early on in life before their prefrontal cortex has fully developed. I don't know what the solution is there. Like, I don't have a recommendation for how we change that system, but I remember being 18 and like my mom asking me like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be when you grow up, basically? And like, what I wanted to do was, and I'm like really getting off topic. What I wanted to do was be Ty from, what was the name of that show? It came on ABC, Extreme Makeover Home Edition. That's how I ended up on the architecture path, because she was like, that's not realistic. And I'm like, what's not realistic about that? Like doing renovations on people's homes and surprising them and hosting a show. That seemed like a logical career for me at the time. And, you know, I got talked out of that really quickly. And like, I didn't understand why that wasn't logical at the time. It seemed like that was what I wanted to do. That was what I was interested in. And I got down this boring architecture path and then did all this work to join this program that I didn't even get into. And that honestly, if I would have gotten into it, I would not have been successful. I know that for sure. That's another story for a different day. the story of like, when you are not meant to be somewhere, you ain't gonna be there. Not gonna happen. And sometimes it's for your, all the times, I truly believe all of the times it is for your highest and greatest good. And rejection is absolutely divine protection. So to get back on topic, I just truly believe that when you have done the work on yourself and you understand your wounds and you have a greater awareness of your inner child, and you do things from the lens of like, let me show up for my inner child, right? When you say the things that you were too young or too afraid to say, to protect yourself, to defend yourself, to stand up for yourself as an adult, you are doing that for your inner child, right? If someone is attempting to hurt you and you put a hand up and you're like, absolutely not, it's not going to happen today, and you defend yourself, you are defending your inner child, right? When you decide to stop taking disrespect and, you know, people stomping all over your boundaries and being manipulative and saying to yourself, I don't deserve this treatment. Like, you are standing up for your inner child. That person still lives inside of you. And it is your responsibility as a grown adult to protect yourself in that way. No one can do it except for you, right? And when you decide to do it, your life changes for the better. Does that mean that you might lose relationships? Yes. Yes, it does. And the reality is, some of those relationships that you might lose, those could have been some of the closest people to you in your life, right? But when you start seeing your life through different eyes, from a healed perspective, from a perspective where you respect yourself enough to not be disrespected by anyone else, and you put yourself first. And I mean, like, listen to me when I say this, right? Because I don't want nobody coming and talking about some, oh, well, you know, you're being selfish. It is your right to be selfish, right? If you have dependents, do the responsible thing and care for your dependents. But your dependents, if they are children or, you know, guardians or whatever, or, you know, whatever, you're the guardian of someone that is a child who cannot care for themselves, it's really important for those young eyes to see you stand up for yourself, to see you set boundaries, to see you speak up, right? And it don't always have to be something dramatic, like, you know, oh, I was disrespected, let me go cuss this person out, or anything rude. Like, it doesn't have to be like combative. That's also a point I want to just be really clear about. It could be something as simple as, like, let's say you're out to dinner with your family and you got it's a bunch of kids at the table. You're out. Let's make a real a real wild scenario. You're out. It's your kids' like 10th birthday party, and y'all are at Pizza Hut back in the 90s with the red acrylic cups with the red roof Pizza Hut, and y'all are sitting down at the table, and you ordered 5 cheese pizzas and 1 pepperoni pizza, and they bring out 5 pepperoni pizzas and 1 cheese pizza, and all the kids are looking around like, oh my gosh, like, this is not what we ordered. And you know that's not what you ordered. You standing up for yourself can simply be you saying, oh, hey, excuse me, Sandra, or whatever your waitress's name is, because you took the time to learn her name. Sandra, we actually ordered 5 cheese pizzas and 1 pepperoni. And then Sandra would go, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'm gonna get this fixed for you. I'm so sorry. You know, I'm gonna put some complimentary breadsticks on the table so, like, you don't have to wait for your food. I'm so sorry about that. And then it's done. And those kids saw you standing up for all of them, getting your order correct, being respectful to Sandra, being polite to Sandra, and Sandra owning the mistake and correcting it for you. Nobody got their feelings hurt. Nobody cried. Nobody had to eat pepperoni pizza when they wanted cheese. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can just be that simple. So for whoever needed to hear this, I hope it was helpful. I hope you just allow yourself time to discover who you are. And if you feel like there are things that you as a grown adult need to resolve, and you're blessed enough to still have your life, you know, take some time to like resolve those things, especially if they're things that you feel you're suffering through. Like I just don't believe that we are supposed to be living this life of suffering. And I know that so many people in the world are suffering, but I think that's where gratitude, for me at least, plays a big role in my life, because I'm so thankful despite all of the hardships I've had to overcome, right? And I'm not just talking about like loser relationships or whatever like that. I mean like some real heavy stuff, like stuff from childhood that it took me 20 plus years to finally tell someone that I went through some things, you know, that were really, really hard. And like I said, doing the work to, at this big age, unpack all of that stuff so that the rest of my years can be more peaceful, more tranquil, more aligned with who I truly am. And like, I want to be an example for my community, my friends, my family, like whoever. And it's me acknowledging that because there are people in the world who are suffering, I am in a privileged space of having a level of freedom that not everybody has been gifted in this world. I don't want to take that for granted. I don't want to take that for granted. I want to live my life to the fullest. I give thanks every day that I wake up and it's as much shit as I want to talk about the country that I'm in, right? I'm thankful to be here, and I'm thankful to live the life that I live, and I'm thankful to just be in this body. Be in this body as somebody who has dealt with chronic pain, you know, and like I feel it. I can feel it right now. It's still there even right now as I'm talking to you, but it is lessened. And like the gratitude I feel on the days when I don't feel the pain. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's just the chronic pain thing, honestly, it's been another big thing. Maybe I'll talk about that too in a different video, but that is really, really like as I've been receiving treatment for my chronic shoulder pain, it has made me so incredibly grateful for the days that I have, like my range of motion is like better than it was the day before, you know? So yeah, just like staying grounded in gratitude and giving other people grace for where they are in their journeys, but also understanding that I am ultimately at the helm of my life, and I can decide when I need to pivot, and I can decide when I need to lovingly release someone because we are not aligned, especially, you know, in a romantic sense. And not being so quick to just like rush into things when I know that I'm on the path of growth. Like I'm still evolving and being fair to myself, but also being fair to whoever I might come across. Like I don't know. I think about some of the guys that I've dated over the past like decade, and I'm like, some people were incredibly kind human beings who I will have love for the rest of my life. Do I need to see them again? No. Do I need to interact with them? Are we friends? You know, like, do we need to kick it? No. That's just a boundary that I've set. And then there are all those people who it's like, or where it's like, I look back and I'm like, ooh, thank goodness I have grown to the point where I can see why that was not a good decision for me. Thank goodness I have discernment in a way that I didn't have it however long ago when I was, you know, dealing with that person. That was not a healthy individual for me to be dealing with. And knowing that I might still come across people, you know, as I become more open to meeting new people, I might come across people who are not necessarily where I am in their own healing journey, if they're on one at all. And this is something I've talked to my therapist about, and she was like, you might need to show a little bit of grace when it comes to that, because the work that you have done and are still doing is like, it's hard work that not everybody chooses to do, and it's deeply spiritual work for me as well. And so, you know, I think it is a bit unrealistic to expect this like unicorn of a person who's done all of this deep unpacking to fall out of the sky and that just be it. Like, I do expect that I will have to have grace with people, but there's just a level of discernment that I have now that I can immediately see when I'm not aligned with someone. And so, yeah, I just wanted to say that because I'm listening, like I said, listening to myself in this video, and it just really, it really stood out as something I needed to revisit again for whoever needs to hear this message. So that's that. I appreciate you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.